There's a moment later in your working life when you notice something has changed. You stop being asked things. Nobody tells you, there's no meeting, no memo. No one pulls you aside and says, right, we've had to think. There's none of that. That would actually require someone to have noticed you, enough to have formed an opinion on you. No, what happens is quieter. You're not sacked, not disgraced. Nobody's put a box on your desk. You're still there. You're still present. You attend meetings or family gatherings or community things you've always attended. You make observations. Occasionally somebody nods. You're just no longer load bearing. And that's the phrase that hit me quite hard when I first thought about it. Load bearing. Because at some point, the structure depended on you being there. At work, perhaps, you were the person that people came to when something broke. Maybe in the family, you were the organizer, the fixer, the mediator, the steady one. In your circle of friends, maybe you were the one who knew how things worked. And then through some process that happens entirely without your knowledge or consent, it doesn't. And the structure stays up, which is almost worse. Because if everything collapsed without you, then at least you'd know you mattered. But it doesn't collapse. It just reconfigures. And that's when the thought crosses your mind. I've become optional. And the thing is, you're even more competent now than you've ever been. You've made the expensive mistakes. You've survived them. You know with some certainty what doesn't work and why. That used to be considered valuable. Apparently, it now gets filed under institutional knowledge, which sounds impressive, but it isn't. What it means is we've decided to keep you on like a manual we don't actually refer to anymore, but haven't gotten around to throwing out, just in case. Physically, there's a recalibration happening in every room you enter. You can feel it. Nobody says anything, obviously. Well, we're British. We don't say things. But there's an assessment going on. Stamina, velocity, the speed at which you contribute ideas in a meeting. When you're younger, thinking quickly looks impressive. When you're older, thinking carefully looks slow. Speed and depth aren't the same thing. Speed wins in rooms with whiteboards. So there we are. And then, and this is the bit I particularly enjoyed, they start sparing you. Quietly deciding you probably don't want the stretch assignment, the late nights, the travel. Nobody asks. They just protect you from it. It's presented as consideration. It feels like being mentally processed before you've reached the exit. And then there are the colleagues, the younger ones. They cluster together, as they should. Same stages of life, same references, same cultural touchstones. You walk into a room and something subtle happens to the energy. Someone was mid-story about Saturday night. You arrive. The story becomes, oh, anyway, it was a good laugh. They stop swearing out of respect, which I suppose is generous, but also quietly devastating, because I've heard every word they're choosing not to say. I probably used most of them. But there you are. You get the edited version. And being edited enough times makes you quieter. You're included, you're just not fully in it. So, in the spirit of what I can only describe as pragmatic acceptance, I closed my computer repair business. On paper, retirement. Logical conclusion. Years of service. A dignified exit. In practice, the phone stopped ringing, which is obvious. When that's what closing means. I do understand cause and effect, but there is a difference. And I want to be specific about this. Between understanding something intellectually and experiencing the very particular silence of a phone that used to ring and now doesn't. The first week it rang 3 times. Twice it was a recorded message, apparently from my bank fraud department. Yeah, we all get those ones. The third was someone who hadn't heard that I'd closed the business, and they were asking if I could fix their printer. I said I was retired. They said, oh, and hung up. Yeah, that oh was doing a lot of work. Because what you lose isn't just the work. Lord knows I don't miss printers and laptops, and I don't miss the people who brought the laptops in and they clearly had assaulted them, and they looked at me as if the laptop had brought it on itself. What you lose is the interruption, the small daily concrete evidence that somewhere, someone right now has a specific problem that requires specific judgment, your experience, your patience. You are, in some minor but general sense, needed. And then you're not. And the structure stays up without you. And that, at my age, is sobering to absorb, because you realise you were useful, competent in many ways, indispensable in, or something close to it, but actually not indispensable. We talk about purpose as if it's some grand mission. It really isn't. Purpose is someone knocking on your door and saying, can you help me with this? And when that stops, there's a quiet wobble. Not dramatic, nothing collapses. You don't weep into your cup of tea. But it brings up a question, really. Right. So, who am I now? Some people get a dog. Some people take up watercolour painting. Some embark on a kitchen renovation that their spouse never asked for and will probably not enjoy. I chose YouTube, which is objectively a strange response to becoming less relevant. I know, I thought, I'll speak into a camera from my spare bedroom in rural Scotland and see if strangers find it useful. But something happened I wasn't prepared for. Seemingly, people did find it useful. Someone from Canada left a message, a comment, saying something that I'd said had helped them. Now, I want to be very clear. This is not the same as being needed. I'm not going to dress it up. Nobody is genuinely in difficulty because I failed to upload. I'm under no illusion about my position in the content ecosystem. But it turns out being occasionally useful to people you'll never meet is enough to be getting on with. Not essential, not urgent, not load bearing, just available. And which sounds smaller than what I was doing. It is smaller than what I was doing, but it isn't nothing.